Hello, and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for Iron Sharpens Iron. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communications, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined by the director of Iron Sharpens Iron, John Richie. John Richie is the co-director and is also a director-producer who specializes in nonfiction media and character-based, issue-driven films. He has worked with CBS News, BET, Discovery, and Bravo. Recently, he collaborated with the Louisiana Endowment for Humanities on several films about Louisiana's disappearing coast and the communities that are impacted. Hello, Rich John, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you as well, too. I'm so glad that you brought us this important piece of work. Obviously your background has contributed to, making a piece like this. So before we get started, you gave me personally an insight on how you got connected with this film. And, I know you read an article and you went down and you started you started talking to people and so forth. What really actually drew you into the film? Because you could have worked on many projects, but what specifically about this topic drew you into wanting to make a film?
Well, I think that it was a couple things. First was the imminent nature of the film, or the topic, as far as that, the community of Ironton was facing an oil and gas company that basically had, unbeknownst to them, bought the land where their ancestral burial grounds were, which was an old plantation that sits right next to the township. And they were in the midst of doing the permitting process. So it wasn't a said and done deal. They had already expressed that they were not happy with this development. And but it also, at the same time, it seemed like it was something that there wasn't a lot of conversation going around. And to be very clear, what they were proposing was building giant oil tankers on top of and around the burial sites of where their ancestrals who were enslaved were buried. And so, I saw this as an opportunity to get ahead of the issue and to possibly help out the community, to be able to make a film that they could use to build support and to be able to leverage whatever kind of destiny that they wanted for their community. Secondly, what drew me to this was that I feel oftentimes that with the whole climate debate issue, that it's absolutely important, and it's such a critical issue that we're all facing. Yet I do think that there's some exhaustion around it, especially like in places like Louisiana, to where, since I was a kid there, we were being told that that every 30 minutes a football field of land disappears from the coast of Louisiana. And you sit around and you hear that, and at first it's alarming, but after 40 years of people saying that kind of stuff, the thing is that you kind of grow numb to it, as far as like you get all, there's other things you care about, there's other issues, because you're not really seeing it. And so with this particular issue, I saw an opportunity to once again reframe, like, as far as the importance of what the impact of climate change and big oil will have as far as like on communities and the environment, where I think that just the idea that somebody is going to build something on top of somebody's grandparents' burial grounds is just inherently, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't take, anybody would not want that to happen to their own family. So I was thinking that this is a way to get people to start to care again about what's going on when it comes to our issues with energy, with and with like climate change.
So as a documentary filmmaker, you have an intent. Was your intent to expose what was going on, to be an aid to the community, or one of those things? What was your intent? What was your intention for this film?
Well, as far as like as a person, I definitely wanted to try to help out this community. Ironton, in Louisiana, when people are trying to mitigate what happens to their communities, and they're up against oil and gas, it doesn't take anybody can see that, as far as that you're up against an entity that has so much more resources and money than a small community would. So I did want to help them out, but also as a filmmaker, especially a documentary filmmaker, I feel like it's always important to present the facts, and good or bad, no matter what it is that I'm feeling. But as far as to shine light on what the truths are, and then allow the audience to come up with their own conclusions. I mean, oftentimes those complex questions, and they're not meant to be answered, they're meant to spark conversation.
Right, exactly. And that's what you did in the film. I just can't, I'm jumping ahead of how I want to ask questions, but I just can't get this one scene out of my mind, is when the community went to look at the land with the with the corporation type people, and they didn't cut the grass. And it's just like, even everyone with common sense knows you should, make it presentable, but that's just one of many facets of what was going on to try to keep the community to not raise an issue about this. I'm sure there are other things as well too. Can you share with us some other insights that may have not made the film that they were doing to try to silence the residents?
Well, as far as I mean, you see in the city council or the parish council meetings, how they, I think by law, and forgive me because I'm not, I'm not a lawyer and I don't know all the rules, but from what I understood, from what I heard in the city council or the parish council meeting, was that when you do these archaeological surveys of these areas, that you have to, it's the purpose of doing that is to be able to present, all the facts about what they find on the ground. And in these findings, they found human remains, which is, obviously that one would really spark anybody to go, wait, excuse me. And it seems like they weren't alerted to the fact that there was human remains, except for in the fact that they put it into a 200-page document. And, according to one of the council persons, not my understanding of it, but for what he said, was that it was his inclination to think that that was intentional in order to be able to kind of gloss over the fact that we are in fact talking about a burial ground, with that scene. And this isn't really your question, but one of the things I want to point out in that scene is that, and it shows you the power of using film, is that if I were to explain to somebody that wasn't there, that didn't see it in their own eyes, that it's like they didn't even cut the grass, that's another detail that people would be like, oh, well, that sounds horrible, but I think that being able to see that really sees, like, as far as like it gives you insight into how it made the community feel, and made you even think about, like, well, if I was in their shoes, how would I feel if this is how this is being presented to me, And I think that what Carlton LaFrance was kind of getting at in that scene is that he felt utterly disrespected, and that if they were going to really be trying to partner or work with the community, that's a very minimal thing that they could have done. It really kind of showed them where what the intentions were, And then the pastor, he even tried to, I think that where it goes out on that scene, he was really trying to even help out the rep from the oil and gas company, being like, if you want us to get on board, this is a very minimal thing that you could do in order to make us feel like we're being really brought to the table on this, So
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head when you said the power of film. I was just thinking that. I was just so glad you had your camera there. You caught that there. It wasn't your intention to
Mm,
do that because you probably didn't know the grass wasn't cut. You just want to say, okay, we're going out, let's capture this. And you made that, segment that there's a story of that little segment there. So it's just, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Um, about the Hurricane Ida,
yeah.
kind of rewrote this story a little bit. What did
Good.
Hurricane Ida do for what's going on? And can you give us an update
Sure.
of what's going on now?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, Hurricane Ida really kind of threw the film into a little bit of kind of like a sorts, as far as it's documentary. So you have no control over what's going to happen. You're just trying to figure out how to present your facts. Um, we had actually even cut the film and finished it 2 days before Hurricane Ida came in. I mean, as I was sitting with my editor working on, putting the final touches and everything, I looked at my phone on an alert and saw that, Hurricane Ida was coming, and you're just sitting there kind of going, and then it was coming directly for Plaquemines, and you're going, oh boy, like this is really something, and so,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you tell me how you ended the film before the hurricane? And then
yeah,
that,
I mean, it's this. I feel like the story is so much more just kind of like cut and dry. It's
yeah.
it's a much easier film to package without having Hurricane Ida in it. But also at the same time, there's no way that you could do that story justice by for instance, like what we're doing right now. If I were to tell you, it's like, oh well, then there was a big hurricane that came through and destroyed 90% of the town.
Mhm.
And so the film basically kind of, it was packaged ready to kind of like present that this is what is going on before the permitting process is done, that as far as that the community was not really on board with this, and that it was being kind of railroaded, that it was kind of being pushed through despite what it was that they were saying, that as far as like they were telling them that they had a place at the table, yet at the same time when they would express their feelings and about what they were, how they were interpreting what was actually happening, that seemed like it was just a bunch of kind of kind of like jumping through the hoops in order to be able to get the final permitting done, and just being able to say, yeah, well, we did take into account what the community did without actually really doing that. And as far as like the actual ending, as far as like I don't even remember exactly what the final thing was at that moment, it but so we had to quickly figure out how to include this. We were out of money for filming. We it's also I managed to get people in, like cameras in early with some of the community members. Um, and then I went down and I followed up, and as far as that was actually, even that was kind of difficult too, because here it is, this community is already exhausted by the advocacy work they had to do on their behalf trying to stop this oil and gas company from coming in. And then on top of that, they get leveled, right? As far as it destroys the church, it was bad. And we're talking about mostly elderly people having to deal with this. And so, I had to document it, but also at the same time, and they were very friendly. They understood the need to document it, but also at the same time, I was coming in where people are trying to grab what did not get destroyed in their lives, and I did not feel like it was appropriate for me to sit there and hang out for days filming while these people are trying to put their lives back together. So, I went in, I got what I thought was just as far as a concise kind of a statement, and then got out in order to be able to put that ending in. And they so with Hurricane Ida on top of it destroying their town, another thing that happened, and you see in the film is that it destroyed the current graveyard where there was caskets of
Past the bar exam. Oh, okay. So he brought stuff in from. I'm gonna check it out right now.
oh well, but there was caskets as far as like littered throughout the community, and it was people that had passed recently, and the most infuriating thing about that was that that the struggle that the community was up against at that was that they wanted to inter the bodies as quickly as possible to get them back in the ground, and because of red tape with the state, those caskets sat underneath tarps for months, which of course there's going to be red tape, all that kind of stuff, but it just felt very disrespectful once again to this community, and but now they are, some have rebuilt, some are back. It's not the easiest thing, as far as there's not, there's no Home Depots or Lowe's in the area. The new policies that FEMA has put out has made it even more difficult for these communities to rebuild, because they're telling them that they have to, build at a certain elevation. Yet, the insurance companies are not, giving them money to be able to put their houses up on stilts. And so there's just a lot of trying to figure it out. And, everyone wants to be back. Everyone wants to be back. Everybody wants to rebuild. But, even a young person that has all the resources in the world would have a hard time, doing, like, navigating the insurance companies and FEMA and all the regulations in order to be able to rebuild their home. It's a hard task.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So any plans to do any type of follow-up work with this, or are you moving on to other projects?
I'm paying attention down with what's going on as far as down in Plaquemines, but as of right now, as far as like I'm turning my attention to other things. So
Okay.
yeah.
Do you mind sharing what those other things are, or they're still in the works?
Oh, I mean, well, so I was, I'm from Louisiana. I spent more than 20 years living in New Orleans. At the time that I started the film, I was already starting to split time between New Orleans and New York. I have a wife and kid here in New York. And just because of life circumstances, my daughter's a school age now. I'm now spending more time up here in New York. And so my newest project that I'm trying to get up off the ground is a documentary about a 20-piece ska orchestra. They are members from every borough of the city. They get together once a week to rehearse. They play out from time to time, but they rehearse in the basement of a bodega, and it's more of an examination of how this band, how these members of this band do this practice and don't get burned out, because it's something that brings them purpose and joy. And then whenever they do play out, it also is a source of joy. So it's a little bit, it's a big pivot from more of like the serious, the hard issues into something that's, still is important, but like as far as like, but it's not climate involved. So
Well, yeah, which is completely fine, because artists and filmmakers, they need to reset with other avenues,
yeah,
and this helps you stay sharp and stay focused.
yeah, definitely.
And then well, John Richie, this has been really a good conversation. Thank you so much for bringing us this important work, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors and your film career. Oh, one quick question I didn't ask, I know we're out of time, is can you just tell me real quick about the reception of the film, either from the corporate side or resident side, real quick?
Yeah, one of the things that it was important to me was that the community, were the first to get eyes on the film in order to make sure that they felt like we were representing it correctly. And they loved it, as far as like we did a screening at a church that was nearby, and they members continue to come to some of the screenings, as far as they asked how they could get copies of it. I mean, it lives online, but they wanted to show it to other people. And as far as like the good news is that it because of the hurricane, obviously things change drastically, but I believe that they are still using it as a way to be able to kind of let people outside the community know what's going on, and so that's, I mean, at the end of the day, that's really important. And yeah, like as far as like the if I would have made a film that they felt like did not represent them correctly, then as far as like I would have felt like I failed at doing my job. But like as far as the reception of it has been good.
Any response at all from the corporation side?
It's interesting. They have been they've been actually ironically they have been trying to help out the community with the rebuilding. And I spoke to them at one point about even trying to do some kind of follow-up in order to be able to talk about, like, as far as like what their response was. And that conversation ended up not going anywhere. So yeah.
Interesting. Well, thank you again. Again, it's been a pleasure, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about our upcoming film festival, please visit us at clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.